the CW, an American television network that began broadcasting on September 18, 2006, as a result of the merger of two unprofitable television networks. What associations come to your mind when you hear the CW? Arrow? Maybe The Flash? Both are good shows that started the whole DCEU CW universe, and they were famous for their massive crossovers between shows. Many DC characters were involved. Among them was Superman, played by Tyler Hoechlin. He debuted as Superman in Supergirl, followed by the introduction of Elizabeth Tulloch as Lois Lane and Elseworlds. Due to their positive reception, the CW decided to develop a family-oriented Superman series focusing on their couple's life as parents rather than just superhero action. Todd Helbing, who worked on The Flash, was brought in as showrunner, and Greg Berlanti, a key figure behind the Arrowverse, helped shape the concept and tone of the show. At first, it seems like a strange idea. Superman, the mighty superhero who always beats the villain and saves his loved ones. But in this show, he had to face other problems, human problems. Raising two sons and trying to have a normal life was new to Superman, and it was new to the audience. Unlike other Arrowverse shows, Superman and Lois had a bigger budget and higher production quality. The cinematic style was inspired by Zack Snyder's Superman films. The show uses anamorphic lenses to create widescreen cinematic look similar to Snyder's films. It uses muted color grading with a cooler, desaturated tone instead of the bright, colorful look of traditional CW shows like The Flash or Supergirl. After years of fighting supervillains and saving the world, Clark Kent and Lois Lane move back to Clark's hometown, Smallville. But they're not alone. They're raising two teenage sons, Jonathan and Jordan. Jordan begins showing signs of having superpowers, which becomes a major issue for the family to navigate. The first season kicks off with the Kent family returning to Smallville after tragedy. They discover secrets about Clark's past and deal with a mysterious armored enemy known as the Stranger, who has surprising connections to Superman. Meanwhile, despite having issues in the Superman suit, the main problem for Clark seems to be his relationship with his sons, who by the way was shocked and angry at their dad for not telling them who he really was. There are a few side characters, like Lois's dad General, who allied with Superman, and Kent's family friends in the city. And in this controversial drama, blood of Superman and Lois unfolds. In recent years, the CW network's superhero lineup, once praised for its energy and accessibility, began to suffer from declining storytelling quality, overused tropes, and shallow character arcs. Shows like Batwoman and later seasons of Supergirl exemplified this trend, often feeling more like a throwaway series rather than a major superhero story. Amid this fatigue, Superman and Lois emerged as a refreshing exception. It didn't just revive interest in the CW's DC universe. It showed the world that they can still make good, solid TV shows like they used to. What makes Superman and Lois stand out isn't just the use of iconic characters or flashy action sequences, but its commitment to high production values and genuinely heartfelt core. First and foremost, Superman and Lois distinguishes itself visually. Unlike many CW shows that falls into the trap of glossy, overly production with heavy reliance on green screen, Superman and Lois adopts a cinematic aesthetic. The show's lighting, color grading, and camera work are far more grounded, giving it a look closer to premium cable dramas than traditional network television. The action sequences are choreographed with weight and realism, and the use of practical locations over studio backlots was a wide choice. This visual polish alone makes it feel like something greater than its CW peers, more in line with Man of Steel or The Flash of early seasons. Beyond its visuals, the writing in Superman and Lois is a major leap forward. Rather than leaning into one week, one villain, and shallow moral lessons, the series invests in a long-form storytelling grounded in character. The writers place real emotional weight on Superman's family dynamic. Clark Kent isn't portrayed just as the savior of the world. He's also a father navigating the challenges of raising two teenage boys, one of whom is developing Kryptonian powers. This concept of superhero and a parent creates real tension. The drama feels personal and lived in. Additionally, Superman and Lois never relies on social message to carry the show, as has been the criticism of some other CW shows, where Supergirl and Batwoman have struggled to first tackle progressive causes and they make sure they have all the right takes. Superman and Lois allows its themes like parenting, sacrifice, legacy, and identity to flow organically from its characters and actions. This nuanced handling of deeper issues enhances the effectiveness and emotional impact of the storytelling. Lois Lane's character demonstrates the show's balanced approach. Rather than reducing her to sidekick or moral cheerleader, the show gives her equal narrative value. She has her own plotline, her own bad guys, and her own heroic conflicts as a reporter, mother, and a wife. The demonstration of troubled marriage of two people trying to be a better parents while still maintaining a sense of purpose adds depth rarely found in superhero shows. Her arc in season 3, when she fights with cancer, was beautiful to watch. She didn't just sit in the chair waiting to be saved. She fought. Although in the series it is shown that most of the time she was afraid. She was afraid of cancer. She was afraid for her kids and for her husband. This is a definition of courage. When you are scared but still take a step no matter what. One of the most significant factors that sets Superman and Lois apart apart from its CW peers is its conscious decision to break free from the typical Arrowverse formula that defined many of the series before. While the show is technically part of the same universe established by Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, and the others, it takes a deliberate step away from the tangled web of crossovers, fan service cameos, and multiverse-heavy plotting that often overcomplicate. The Arrowverse, once a groundbreaking shared universe and network television, eventually became weighted down by its own ambition. Annual crossover events were marketed as high-stake television events, but over time they began to feel obligatory, often forcing characters into storylines they had no real reason to be in. These crossovers frequently paused ongoing character arcs in favor of universe-spanning spectacles, sacrificing emotional continuity for shock value and fan appeal. While exciting at first, this formula became repetitive, overstuffed, and ultimately exhausting for many viewers. In contrast, Superman and Lois avoids this trap. From the outset, the series established itself as narratively independent, even going so far as to reintroduce familiar characters in a reimagined context. While the series acknowledges the DC universe, it doesn't rely on it to function. There are no constant references to The Flash, no surprise appearances by the Legends of Tomorrow, and no forced multiverse explanation. Instead, the focus is placed squarely on Smallville, the Kent family, and the specific emotional and societal challenges they face. This narrative isolation creates a breathing room. The writers can develop characters deeply without being interrupted by crossover demands or continuity gymnastics. Moreover, by not being chained to the Arrowverse shared timeline or mythology, Superman and Lois enjoys creative freedom. It can reframe its version of Superman and Lois Lane without being beholden to decisions made in Supergirl. The result is a more cohesive story world with internal logic and emotional continuity, something sorely missing in many interconnected series that have to juggle multiple timelines and character arcs across different shows. This distance also means that Superman and Lois doesn't rely on nostalgia or legacy character cameos to maintain interests. It builds emotional engagement through grounded storytelling, not constant winks to the audience. The show invites viewers to care about its characters because of who they are now, not because of who they've met or what crossovers they've survived. In a television landscape increasingly cluttered with universe building and meta commentary, the simplicity is a strength. If you watched this video until here, that means you enjoy my work. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I really appreciate that. If it wasn't the final season being so good, I wouldn't make this video. While Superman and Lois was a good show, up until the final season I wouldn't call it great and one of the greatest among the superhero TV shows. But here we are. The final season showed the world how true Superman should be on the screen, his legacy and humanity. The season started as typical as ever, but then slowly closing the arcs of characters like the example of General Lane and John Henry. The show demonstrates to us that despite being nearly a god, Superman struggles against Doomsday. And being of course Superman, he tries to fight only by himself. But even heroes like Superman need help from the closest ones. That help might be moral support or fighting side by side. In the middle of the season, specifically since episode 7 called A Regular Guy, when finally, after so many years, Clark decides to open himself to the world that he's a Superman. The decision wasn't easy, because throughout the season some people started to suspect that Clark Kent is Superman, and his children also have superpowers. After almost the whole town suspected that he might be the superhero, the scene in the diner happens. Reveals himself as the most powerful being on the planet, the first thing he does is apologize. The interview he gave to Daily Planet when the whole world finally gets to know who was behind Superman's mask. Turns out he was indeed just a regular guy. He said that beyond being Superman, he's a father to the 2 wonderful boys and a husband. The writers in the show, they are the real heroes. They understood Superman's whole point. The writers avoided the usual tropes of superhero TV. They didn't rely on non-stop action or endless world-ending threats. Instead, they gave Superman real emotional stakes. His family could fall apart, his marriage could suffer, his sons could lose their way. Even with powers, he can't always fix everything. Smallville and his family are what he is fighting for. The final season, especially the last episode, drives this home by showing that Superman's greatest power isn't flight or strength, it's his love for Lois and his family. His legacy isn't just about what he did as a hero, but the life he lived as a man. For decades, Superman has been known as the man who never dies, the invincible alien from Krypton. But in this final scene, Superman and Lois shows us something completely different. Clark Kent dies not in the battle, not as a superhero, but as a man, an old man, surrounded by his family in peace. And that's the whole point. The show chooses not to end with him saving the planet or defeating another villain. It ends with him simply growing old and having lived a full life with Lois. His last breath isn't taken in the sky, but in the bed with his children beside him. And when he reunites with Lois in the afterlife, it's not about capes or glory, it's about love and memory. You know, for all his powers, Superman doesn't go out in a blaze or glory. He doesn't fall from the sky or vanish in some epic final battle. He simply lives, and then, like all of us eventually do, he dies. Quietly, peacefully, as a man. And somehow that makes everything he did matter even more. He never had to be human, but he chose to live like one. With a heart full of love, a mind shaped by empathy, and soul driven by hope. If someone ever asks you, what is Superman really about? Don't point to the cape, or the powers, or the laser eyes. Point to that final moment, because that's Superman. Not the alien, not the god, but the man who believed in something greater, in people, in family, in forgiveness, in helping others, even when it's hard, and in love. Because in the end, that's what this show reminded us, that the greatest power anyone can have isn't flight or strength, it's the ability to live fully, love deeply, and leave something behind that truly matters. After all, what is life without love?